Hello and welcome to our webinar. We are going to be exploring this evening extracurriculars in terms of US applications. My name is Rowena. I'm one of the Education USA advisors here at Fulbright, and tonight I'm going to take you through a short introduction to the idea of extracurricular lists and how they fit into a US university application, and then give you some tips on how you can make sure that your list represents everything you are doing in your school and gives you the best chance of being seen in the admissions process. And this evening I will be taking questions. There is a question and answer function, which if you hover over the bottom of your screen you should be able to see. Please do feel free to pop any questions you have in there, and I will take some answer those questions later on at the end. So please do add some questions in. If any time you can't hear me, please do let me know. You can raise your hand or pop into the chat and just let me know, and I'll be kind of keeping an eye on that. So to get started, to just talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. I'm part of the Education USA team here at Fulbright. Education USA is a free service that helps international students apply to US universities. We offer our advice for free. We're here to help, and we want to make sure that UK students have the best advice possible when applying to American universities. And so you can make sure that you put your best foot forward in terms of putting an application into a US university. We're part of a giant network, so there's about 600 advisors around the world in about 400 centres in about 300 countries or so. And so if you are interested in studying in the United States, we are here to help. We are based at the Fulbright Commission in London, and always happy to help people pursue that studying in the US dream. For my own story, I studied in the United States as part of my undergraduate degree, had the most amazing time, and it was totally life transforming for me. As you might be able to tell, I have an English accent. I'm from here in the UK, and I did GCSEs and A-levels before heading out to the States. And it was totally the making of me, and that's why I have this amazing job where I get to help other people do that jump as well. So just quickly, why do British students express interest in studying in the United States? Just to give you kind of a little bit of a background for today's session and how it all links together. These are some of the top reasons that British students are interested in the US and keen to study there. So being aware that some of the world's best universities, most well-known universities are available in the United States. There's about 4,500 universities across the States, so it's a lot of choice, and it means that each university is quite different to another university. So there's a real variety of different types of schools available, different types of universities. So there's a good university that will be a good fit for every single person, but they don't all come in the same shape or size. So just being kind of aware of that. Another reason British students are always really interested in studying at a US university is the opportunities for life on campus, for the campus experience, whether that's going to sports games, living up school spirit, or whether it's getting involved in the many internships, clubs, volunteering, and all sorts of other activities going on, both inside the classroom, but also outside the classroom on a US campus. And today we're going to be talking about extracurriculars, and that's a really key piece of this campus life, and we'll talk a little bit more why extracurriculars are important in the admissions process to a US university along the way. Another reason British students are often really excited about studying in the United States is the academic flexibility. This means that students don't have to know what they want to study when they apply to a US university. In fact, US students at a US university will study a broad range of subjects for up to their first 2 years of their 4-year degree before majoring, specializing in a particular subject. So that kind of academic flexibility is really attractive to some UK students. There are lots of funding opportunities available, and again, if a student can stand out in the admissions process, sometimes this can attract generous funding from US universities, so that's always an important thing to think about. British students also are always really interested to know how having an international degree, a degree from another country, can affect their employment choices. Certainly in my own case, my American studying has always made my own CV stand out, and it's given me a real platform to be able to talk about the things I'm interested in and the things I want to do, which has been really helpful through my career in getting jobs along the way. And then often British students want to head to the US to understand a bit more about our American cousins, and to understand a bit more about the United States, and to see the full variety of different cultures that exist within the United States. So having an opportunity to explore that is attractive for many British students. So just cover a couple of really quick key differences. If you are looking at a US university and weighing that up against perhaps attending university here in the UK, just so you totally know this as we go into this discussion today, some of those big differences between the UK and the US is the duration. So here in the UK, most bachelor's degrees, most undergraduate degrees are 3 years long. In the United States, a standard bachelor's degree is actually 4 years. So it's just something to think about as you take into account of this. To think about this idea of what's called the liberal arts, which is this process of being able to take a variety of different courses before specialising in one particular subject area. That's something very different than a UK degree where you pick one course to study and you study that for the 3 years, possibly with some optional modules along the way. But generally you're studying one degree and that's set from the outset, and you're applying for that degree as well. So just knowing that it's quite a different setup in the United States to go to college. And then that leads into this idea, when you have students applying to US universities, they're applying to the university as a whole. They're not applying to the Department of Chemistry or the Department for History at a particular university. They're applying to join the university as a whole, to go in as a member of that first year class, and then figure out what they're going to study perhaps later down the line. And so that affects the admissions process, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And then the other thing just to be aware of is the US has a lot of flexibility within its university admissions system. So there are no set deadlines. Universities can choose their own deadlines or have no deadlines. And also universities can choose their own fees as well. And so there's a lot more flexibility around that than here in the UK. Okay, so just really quickly, if we're thinking about a timeline for applying to a US university, broadly, here's the kind of timeline that we'll be suggesting here at Fulbright. Students should always be applying to a US university in the year before they plan to enroll. So if a student is in England or Wales, then this would be the year 13 before they plan to go to university after they finish year 13. If you're in Scotland, that's S6, and Northern Ireland, that's year 14. So just knowing that that's the kind of timeline when you're applying. But if you're in year 12 or before, then this is a really great time to be starting with these first parts of the process. So first thing to do in applying to US universities is spending some time researching different universities, really getting familiar with all the universities on offer. And this can be a really great project if you're in year 10, year 11, year 12, to really spend your time on this, because it dictates your success further down the line. If you are in before year 13, then this is a great time also to look at the universities that you're thinking about applying to. Do they need any admissions exams? And getting those exams registered for and taking those exams, you can get those scores in hand before you get into year 13. You can do those exams in year 13, but it just adds that extra pressure along the way. As you head into the summer of between year 12 and year 13 in England and Wales, then you'll want to be thinking about finalising your selection, taking your research and starting to select 6 to 10 schools that you're going to be applying to for your undergraduate degree. You'll want to put together an application and submit it, crucially, and that can be happening in the autumn of that final year of high school. So year 13 in England and Wales, or S6 in Scotland. Eventually you'll receive your admissions decision, and you will then go ahead and apply for a visa in about May, June time before you enroll at a US university. You'll be able to access our pre-departure information on our website, and then you'll begin your studies. And this is normally happening in about August of the year that you plan to start. So a little bit earlier than UK universities. So this is kind of how things fit. Today's webinar is about extracurriculars, so it's got a particular focus around putting together that application, but it's definitely something that you can be thinking about earlier in that process as well. Okay, so how do these extracurricular lists fit into a college application? Why do universities even care about an extracurricular list? You might be asking yourself. Well, I'm going to try and just share with you here a little bit of information, and what my screen says, if you can't quite see it under my video, is what is a selective university looking for in the admissions process? How are they measuring the students that they're assessing? And some universities will literally have thousands of applications. Some of the best known universities in the United States will have 50,000 applications to get through for a class of about 1,000 students. So they have 1,000 seats and 50,000 applications. So what are these selective universities looking for when they're assessing an application? Well, first of all, they want to know that somebody is a great student. They want to know that they are doing really well in their classes, and whether that's GCSEs or National Fives, your A-levels, IB, whatever you're studying, they want to know that you're doing really well there. They want to know that you're going to be a good academic fit for the university. So if you are interested in, say, engineering, the university wants to know that you know that they have an engineering major or not. But they also want to know, are you the kind of person who's going to engage with the academic life on campus? What makes you excited about the academics at that particular university, as opposed to any other university? So they'll be looking for that. They're also going to be looking for your extracurriculars. It's a part of the application, and making a decision between many, many thousands of very well qualified students. A university will be looking at those extracurriculars and what we're calling here personal attributes, which we'll touch on in a moment. So these are the things that a selective university is looking at when deciding who to admit into their incoming class. And I just thought I'd show you this, which I've made to just try and explain the kind of process. So the first thing a university will want to do is, when they receive your application, is have a look at your academic achievement, and they'll be measuring this, if you're in the UK, by your GCSEs, National 5 grades. If you're taking any AS levels, they'll want to be able to see your predictions, your teachers' predictions for those, and they'll also be interested in your hires or your A-levels or your IB predictions as well. And if those are not on par with the university that you're applying to, then that might be that you are cut out of the process fairly early on. So that's the first thing the university is going to be looking at. And then they're also going to be interested in this idea of academic potential. And so some universities will measure this with this idea of an admissions exam score. So this is known as the ACT or the SAT. And there's lots of resources on our website about those exams and how they work. But some universities will choose to ask for an admissions exam score, and that's another piece of data that they're looking at when assessing this initial pass over a student's application. So these are the gatekeepers. If you're not meeting, if you're not on par with the other applicants to this university that you're applying to, then you may find that your application doesn't progress as far. Now, I put this big red line in because if your application has progressed beyond this point, that's when universities spend some time looking at this idea of extracurriculars, your extracurricular involvement, and also what we're calling here you as a person, your personal attributes. So your character and leadership, anything that makes you special and stand out from other people, and also your reasons for wanting to attend that university. So demonstrating these things in your application is a really important part of this process. And I've made note here, admissions officers are looking to develop this idea of a really well-rounded group of people, a really well-rounded class. So they're looking for people who are different to each other, who are going to bring something different to campus. They do not want to admit the same person over and over and over again, because they know that campus life will be very dull if that's the case. So they're really using these intangible things, these extracurriculars and other qualities to help hone the type of class that they want to build. I'll give you an example here. I worked with a student called Joe, who had a hobby that not many of his friends shared. He was a bell ringer. So he would ring bells in his spare time, making music with those. And it's not necessarily the most common hobby, but he was applying from the UK to study at a university. And he was actually ended up being admitted to a very selective university. And I imagine that he was the only bell ringing student in that admissions officer's pile of applications to read. Does that admissions officer, in this case it was Yale, does Yale want everyone to be a bell ringer? Absolutely not. What they're looking for is lots of different types of people doing different things. So your extracurricular list is a really great way to be able to show what you might bring to campus, your passions, your hobbies, your interests, and mark yourself out from other candidates. Okay, so what does that application to a US university look like? So we have several things that are part of an application to a US university. There is an application form with information about you. There's your admissions exam scores. There are some essays that you will write as part of your application. Your teachers will create a transcript, which is a listing of your grades, and some recommendation letters about you as part of your application, and there'll be an application fee. Extracurriculars actually fit on the application form itself. US universities will leave a space, and they will ask students to fill out extracurriculars if this is something that they're looking at. If your university that you're looking at uses something called the Common Application, you'll find that this is a tool that you can use to speed up that process of submitting applications. The Common Application is used by about 900 different universities in the United States, and it is a way of speeding that up. And activity lists are part of the Common Application as standard, so it's in that application form section. Okay, so what does an extracurricular look like? An extracurricular is anything that you're doing that you don't have to do as part of your school curriculum. So going to a maths class is not an extracurricular because you have to do that, or going to your hires computing class, that is something that you have to do as part of being at school. So an extracurricular is anything that you're doing outside of the time that you have to be in the classroom. Another way of thinking about it is an extracurricular is anything that when your time is your own, when you have control over your time, what are you doing with that time? Extracurriculars are normally how you express that. So maybe you are super into K-pop and you write a blog about K-pop. Perhaps that's an extracurricular that you have. Maybe you're the lead in the musical at your school. That's an extracurricular. Perhaps you spend your time volunteering for an environmental campaign. That would be an extracurricular. Perhaps you have a part-time job. That's an extracurricular. Maybe you have responsibilities at home. That would also be an extracurricular. So anything you're doing outside of the time that school owns you, that is extracurriculars. So it's worth starting out. Often students I'm working with don't know that they have these extracurriculars, so it's really worth starting to think about all the different things that you do and all the things that you're interested in with your time, and how you spend your time, and starting to make a list to start to make sure that you don't miss any of these extracurriculars. You want to make sure that you're kind of representing yourself the very best that you can. So one thing you might want to think about are hobbies. Are hobbies part of your extracurricular? What hobbies do you have? Are you taking part in lots of different hobbies? Maybe it's jewelry making, maybe it's stargazing, maybe it is creating YouTube videos. Whatever your hobbies are, that's something to make a list of. Do you play any sports? So maybe you play sports for fun. So that's definitely anything you do there, to keep a list of those, whether that's team sports or whether that's individual sports. Do you play sports at a fairly high level? What level are you playing those? Are they for fun? Are they at your school level? Do you represent your school? Maybe you play a sport at a county level, or perhaps even you're a national level athlete. Whatever it is, make a list of the things that you do in these areas, or you perhaps have done in the past. So keeping kind of a list going of those things. You might want to think about activities that you do related to academics. So this could be going to lectures outside of the class time. Perhaps you go to the Royal Institute lectures, or perhaps you go to your local university and go to public lectures. Anything like that, definitely keep a list of that, because it's a really key part of your application. You might also want to think about any other academic things that you do. Maybe you tutor other students at your school, maybe you help out in the homework club. All of these, I would argue, are academic extracurriculars and definitely worth making a list of. Maybe you run a history club, or maybe you have set up a debating team. All of these are academic extracurriculars as well. So you might want to be thinking about any leadership roles that you hold. Maybe you're a young leader in the Scouts or the Guides. Maybe you are taking a stand for something in your school. Perhaps you're the school prefect, or you're head of the student council. All of these are leadership opportunities and activities that you might be taking part in. So if you've got any of those going on, definitely make a list of any of those. Do you have a part-time job? This is definitely an extracurricular to include. It's something that's going to take up your time. And so different students will have different numbers of hours and different things that they're doing with their part-time jobs. But it's really important that you include it in your extracurricular list along the way, especially because it's a really important to show how you're using that time along the way as well. And it actually looks great to a US university. You're taking responsibility, you are making things happen, and perhaps you're saving towards the cost of university. Again, that looks amazing to a US university. So you might also want to think about any prizes and honours that you've won. Less impactful is maybe 100% attendance. A US university, particularly a very selective one, is going to hope that you always turn up to your classes. But if you've won any prizes for, perhaps the best GCSE grades at your school, or maybe the highest grade in your GCSE history, maybe you have won the UK maths competition. Maybe you are coming top in a debate team. Maybe you have been invited to join a particular program at your school or at your county level. Any of these kinds of things can fit into this prizes and honours category. Anything that you're doing, and sometimes students are being awarded prizes for their volunteering in their local community. Anything like that can fit under prizes and honours, and it's really useful to make a list of those as well. So you might want to think about any volunteering that you do. That could be in school, maybe running the litter club, maybe it's helping out with a homework club. But you also want to think about any volunteering you do. Do you work in a charity shop? Do you help in a local youth club? Anything like that, you can add under the volunteering. Maybe you go into old people's homes and kind of run tea mornings and things like that. Anything like that can go under the volunteering section. So just making any kind of list of any activities that you've done, either doing now or you've done in the last couple of years, really great to boost those out. You might want to think about any interests that you have. I mentioned K-pop earlier. Perhaps that's an interest that you have. Maybe you're the kind of person that just can't stop taking everything apart. When you find, and you've got this real interest in robotics and how things work and engineering, make a list of those kind of things. Maybe you are really into planetary science. Make a list of that. Any kind of interests or hobbies or activities that you're doing, please do make a list around those things. And you might want to think about any faith activities. Maybe you're really active in your local mosque. Maybe you run your kids group at church. Anything like that, you can also add that into your extracurricular list to show the different activities that you're taking part in. And then you also want to think about any responsibilities that you might have. So some students don't have many responsibilities, but other students might be spending time helping their parents. So perhaps they're a young carer for a disabled parent. Perhaps you're the only person in your family who speaks English, and therefore you're doing a lot of translating for your family. Maybe you have a responsibility towards a different family member, or to your younger siblings. Anything like that you can add on as an extracurricular, because it's an important way that you spend your time, and it's great for a university to see the types of activities that you're doing. So you can really start to make a list of the different types of activities that you might be interested in including. At this stage, I would keep it fairly open, keep those ideas flowing, because it's really easy to miss activities along the way, and you don't want to be in that situation. Oh, and here's another one I've forgotten to add. Any activism and campaigning. Perhaps you led a campaign in your school, maybe you're involved in a political campaign. Anything like that is another opportunity to showcase activities that you've been involved in. Okay, so a question we get a lot is about quality versus quantity. So some people say, so on the common application form, there are 10 slots. And so sometimes people say to me, do I need to fill all 10? I think it's great if you can fill as many as possible. That's always great, but you don't want to come off as insincere. You don't want to have so many activities that you've only done a little bit on, because it just doesn't look like sustained effort towards those. So you want to be thinking about, are there activities that I've been doing for a significant sustained period of time, perhaps over several years? Are there things that I've committed my time to? Are there things that I've been doing for this long period of time, or lots of activities that kind of relate to each other and tell a story about me? Maybe I'm super into engineering, and so I build robots in my bedroom in my spare time. I write a blog about all the things I've taken apart. I go to lectures about engineering topics, and then I took an internship in an engineering company last summer. Those would be a set of activities that would show this kind of quality over perhaps the quantity of activities. But some people do have lots of interests and are doing lots of things. So if that's you, please use all 10 of those boxes to fill in all 10 activities. But just know that you don't want to come off, like I say, as insincere by listing lots of very surface level activities or things that you did once and didn't continue with. So just thinking about that as you go. Okay, another concept that I think is really useful when you're thinking about activities and how to list them on your US application is this idea of first, best, and only. It's a really useful lens as you think about your activities and you think about their impact to help you think about how you might represent them in your form. US universities love this idea of making an impact, whether that's an impact on you personally or an impact on your community, perhaps your school, perhaps your faith community, perhaps your local area, whatever it is that you have been out there showing your impact in your local community. So first, best, and only. The way to use this is to think about, is this something where I was the first person to do something? So maybe you founded the history club at your school. Maybe you were the first person in your community to do something different. Maybe you were the first person to be the female chair of the school council. Whatever it is, you can use that lens to help you write about your extracurriculars. It can be a really useful approach. So that's being first at something. Then you've got being best at something. So maybe you are one of the best cross-country athletes in your county. Absolutely, you're the best at something. Maybe you are the best singer in your school, and therefore you have been awarded the lead in the musical or the lead in the drama play. Maybe you are the best at debate make competitions or something like that. Again, it's a really great way to show your impact as you go. And then the other thing to just add is only. So maybe you're the only person in your community doing something. So perhaps you're the only person in your village who is working on a project or making something happen. Perhaps you're the only person in your school who has done something a bit different to everybody else. Again, you can use only as a way to contextualize your achievements so that a US admissions officer understands the impact of what you've done. First, best and only is a really great way to think about those activities and use them as a lens. Not everything might fit into first, best and only, but to figure out that scale of impact, this can be a really useful approach. Okay, so once you've got your list of activities and you're starting to think about how you might put them into your US application form, you might want to think then a little bit about this activity. So for each activity that you're planning on including, what you're going to want to do is make this list. So you're going to want to explain your role in the activity. Were you a club member? Were you the club president? Were you the coach of the team? Or were you just a player? Did you captain the team? Whatever it happens to be, just think through what were you doing on that project and on that activity. So what was your role in that activity? And then you're going to want to figure out how many hours you've been involved in this activity on an average week. So this can be really tricky. Obviously it's an average, but you want to think about how much of your time does this activity take up. And as I've included here, you want to include both the time that you've actually been doing the activity plus any time that you've been using to prepare or train for that particular activity. You want to think about how long you've been doing this activity. So how many years? Is this something that you use as a new hobby or interest or activity? Or perhaps this is something that you've been doing since you were, 8 years old. Think about how many years have you been doing it and pop that down in your list as well. And then you want to think about any personal impact. What impact has it had on you doing this activity? Has it developed you and giving you more insight into yourself along the way? How have you changed as a result of this activity? And you also want to think about what community impact it's had. So has you doing this activity, what impact has it had perhaps on your school, on your fellow pupils at your school, on your local community, on young people around you, on older people around you? What impact does your activity have along the way as well? Then you want to think about any active verbs that help describe the activity. So different activities will have different active verbs, but you want to be thinking about any words that help you describe that activity and the work that you do on it. You want to be showing that you are super involved in that activity and through the language that you're using. You want to think about any ways to quantify your involvement. Have you won competitions? Amazing, put that down. Have you fundraised? If you were fundraising, how much did you fundraise? What did that money achieve in your local community? Anything that you can try and put specific numbers or specific impacts against will be super helpful along the way. And then again, consider, are you the first, best or only at this activity? Really useful way to just think about your activities and the impactfulness of them. Okay, so if you're putting that into the Common App, which is used by, as I said, about 900 universities, a couple of things to just make sure you know. There is only 150 words to describe, 150 characters to describe any one activity. So you're going to want to really think about planning this out and making sure that each single character has an impact. So you want to think about the headline of your activity, make that count, make it do a job, make it do some hard work, because you've got really limited space. You want to think about leaving out any extra words. If it's getting a bit wordy, cut those words out, and make sure that the words that are there are really impactful. A lot of students I work with will spend ages trying to figure out how to get rid of an extra space, or change and into an ampersand, use commas to separate things, all of these kind of tricks to help your activities stand out. And that's because a US admissions officer is not going to have the time to spend a long time reading very long paragraphs. So you want to be super meaningful. You want to focus on any impact that you've had. Use your active verbs. And then in the common application, when you have your 10 activities, you want to think about the order in which you're going to put these activities in. Generally, you want the highest impact activity, or the most standout activity, to be at the top of the list, and then go down in order. If it feels like all your activities are of the same impact, then you might want to put the most recent activities at the top, and go down. Perhaps the thing that you were doing in year 10 can go towards the bottom because it's not as recent. If you were in a Harry Potter movie, absolutely put that at the top. Anything that makes you stand out and will catch an admissions officer's eye. I'm just going to give you a quick example here. So this might be an example of how one could write an activity. The headline is art. I make artworks and run a club. That could be how you write about an activity, but I'd suggest to you that it's more impactful to instead transform it this way. Founder, school arts club. We're already seeing a difference. We're seeing somebody who is creating something, it's being the first, they're founding a club, bit more context, school art club. And then you can see here I've written organize and run meetings, set up activities and days out. I've written set up field trips, oversaw group art pieces for school entrance, there's a bit of impact, and curated club Instagram. Got a much greater sense of the student and their activity from the second piece, and this fits into the 150 characters. So just being a bit strategic with those activities and spending the time on getting those looking really good. This is what it looks like in the common application. For each activity, this is the page that you would pull up. So you would select an activity type, you would put in your position and leadership description, describe the activity, then you'll say which year you were doing it at school, so you can pick which grade. We'll talk about those in a minute. We'll talk about timing of participation. Maybe this is something you do in the school holidays, in which case it's school break, or school year, or all year round. Hours spent per week, weeks spent per year, and whether you intend to participate in a similar activity in college. So here, if you've done the first activity where we've made that list and really put those all these factors out, you will find that actually you can fill in this section really easily, having made your list already. And this is what it looks like when it comes up on a student's application form for an admissions officer. So here it's a particular activity around a school's rocket club, head designer and builder of school's rocket club, team of 5 built rockets capable of exceeding 1,000 foot. Yes, nice, specific, measurable impact there. Regional champions and national finalists twice. Sounds amazing. And then on the left, what you can see is the student has categorized this as a science or math activity. They have said that they're taking part in it in grade 9, grade 10, that it was an activity at school level, 6 hours a week, 40 weeks a year, and they plan to continue this into their time at university. So that's how it looks on the other end for an admissions officer. So just to pick up on school grades, US school grades are different to the grades that we use in the different parts of the United Kingdom. These grade 9 to grade 12 for a US university is equivalent to the final 4 years of high school, which for those of us in England, Wales and Wales would be our GCSE years and our A-level years. And you can see here, I've just made a quick table to show you how 9th grade compares. So in Scotland, that's S3. In Northern Ireland, that's year 11, and in England and Wales, that's year 10. And therefore, 12th grade is year 13 in England and Wales, Northern Ireland's year 14, and in Scotland, that's S6. So that's how you can use those to translate those into American grades. So I just wanted to finish up this webinar. Hopefully you've heard a little bit about extracurriculars. I'm very happy to take questions if you want to pop anything into the question and answer box. That will be coming up shortly, so please feel free to pop anything in there. Just to let you know of ways we can help you in terms of supporting your application to a US university. These are some of the ways that we can help. So please do check out our website. Hopefully that's where you registered for this event. But we do have a full guide to studying in the United States and how to apply to do that, literally step by step. We have some amazing guides to the Common Application, which literally walk you through question by question to tell you what to put in each box. So please do go and have a look at those. They're all on our website, free and available to anyone to use. We also take questions via phone and via email. So you can call us on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and you can send us an email at any time, and we will reply during business hours. So please do check those out. You can find details about that on our website. We hold all sorts of events about studying in the US, both online and in person. So please do check those out too. This is an example of a particular event online. Our events are sometimes general in nature, how to study in the United States for undergraduate study or for postgrad study, and sometimes they're more specific. So we might dig into sports scholarships or a particular facet of the application process. So do keep an eye on our website. We list them all there. So I just wanted to move on to any questions and answers. If anyone has any questions, please do feel free to pop them in to the Q&A box, and I will be very happy to answer them along the way. A question that we get regularly is about this idea of showing your impact, and whether activities that you've done further in the past are something that you should be putting into your US application. And I definitely say that the answer to this would be, it depends what other activities that you've got. If there's something that you did in year 7, but you've now got lots of other activities, and you can fill those 10 slots up with something else, then I would definitely use those other activities. If, however, the thing you did in year 7 was super impactful, and you know, it's really makes you stand out, then definitely do include it. As a general rule, prizes and honours I would generally include, especially if they mean something, even if they're beyond those 4 years. Whereas activities, I would tend to suggest, unless you were in a Harry Potter movie or you won an outstanding sports medal at national level or something like that when you were 9 years old, generally extracurricular activities I would suggest should be those 4 years of high school. And yeah, and just really making sure that you have added anything about the activities that you're taking part in, and think beyond the box. Like, many students have part-time jobs or have other responsibilities outside of school, so making sure that you're adding those in and showing those off, and they actually look really impactful to universities. They really understand those different things that you're doing with your time, those different responsibilities that you might have. So they look good to US universities. Okay, so other questions that are coming up. We've got this question, is it too late to apply to universities in the US if you're in year 13 in England? Great question. It depends what universities you're looking at. There are lots of US universities that will still accept an application for this coming summer and autumn, so to start this in 2020, start your studies. But some universities will have already set their deadlines and those will have passed, so it may be too late to start this year. So having a look at the universities you're looking at, and if it's not clear from their website, drop them an email. They really don't mind hearing from you. So please do check out their websites, have a look at their deadlines. If there are universities that you want to apply to and that you've missed the deadlines for this year, then you may want to consider whether you take a gap year and apply next year for admission in the following year, so 2021. So you would apply in the autumn of 2020 to start in 2021. So it depends entirely on the university is the answer to that question, and different universities will have different policies around that, so definitely go and have a look at the university website. Okay, question, do we have the slides? Absolutely. We will be sending out a recording of this presentation and also a copy of the slides to everybody who registered for this webinar. So that will be coming out in the next couple of days, and that's really helpful, hopefully for you in terms of putting these applications together. Okay, another question. When doing an extracurricular, is it a must that we have a leadership position, or can we just do things that we're passionate about in those applications, in those activities? Absolutely. So if you are passionate about something and you're participating, it's absolutely something that you can list in your extracurricular list. What you just want to bear in mind is that universities will be, and their admissions officers will be interested in looking for any impact. So you either want to think about the impact of your activities, and the other thing about leadership roles in an activity is that it can be a really good demonstration of impact and a really nice way to make yourself stand out. Obviously, not everybody can be a leader of everything all of the time, so having a kind of balance of the things that you're doing, if you're doing something, even if you're not leading it, it is absolutely something that you can add into your application. You just want to think about what impact does my participation have on my community, on my school, on my family, and what impact does it have on me as well. Okay, great question here. Is Duke of Edinburgh a good extracurricular, and is Gold Award impressive? Absolutely brilliant question. So lots of UK students do Duke of Edinburgh, and also things like NCS. And so many US universities who receive lots of applications from British students will be familiar with Duke of Edinburgh and things like National Citizen Service, NCS. So Duke of Edinburgh and activities like that are great activities to have and great honours to have. Just being aware that for there are opportunities that sometimes are available to lots of students, and therefore lots of students applying to US universities will also have Duke of Edinburgh. So it's a great activity to have, and particularly if a student if you can show that you've perhaps taken on the skill part of Duke of Edinburgh or the service part of Duke of Edinburgh and then taken it forward and continued with that, is a nice way to make it stand out. But you want to be aware that lots of students from the UK participate in these, and you want to be getting that balance between showing your activities but also showing your unique perspective along the way. Gold Award is definitely more impressive than Bronze Award, and probably more students will have Bronze Award than will have Gold Award on their applications. My top tip when it comes to things like Duke of Edinburgh would be to just really think about the different elements that make up up that and to think about the impact of that Duke of Edinburgh activity rather than just having it as a standalone. It's definitely a great thing to do and a great honour to have, but you just want to make sure that you're still standing out on top of things. Okay, other questions that we've got. Okay. Great questions coming in here. Somebody's asked, can we listen to this again? Absolutely, we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar to everybody who's registered. Another question we've got here is, given we're applying to the whole university rather than just a department, does it matter what A-level combination we do, especially if you know what particular career you might want to have in the future? Really great question. So just stepping back and thinking about how it works in the United States. So if you are a high school student at a US high school, you will be studying, rather than here in the UK where we might study 3 or 5 subjects, in the United States, a 17-year-old at high school will be studying a full range of subjects still. So they will be studying maths and English and history and geography and PE and all sorts of other things. So Americans have a really wide curriculum. So here in the UK, we tend to narrow our curriculum down. If you're doing A-levels, then you'll find that you're probably doing 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5, but it's a more limited group of A-levels. And US admissions officers understand that's how our high school curriculum here works. So they know that we specialize and go a lot deeper into a smaller number of subjects. So when you're applying to a US university, because you will be studying within the liberal arts model, it will mean that you will be expected to study a broad range of subjects again before deciding on what's called your major, possibly at the end of your second year. So it doesn't matter as much the A-level combination that you're taking, because you will be doing a broad range of subjects. What you will want to demonstrate is that you, a US university, if you're not doing something like maths right now as an A-level, a US university will be keen to go and have a look at your, say, your maths grade from your GCSEs. They might also be looking at the admissions exam. If they ask for an admissions exam, they might be looking at your maths score as part of your admissions exam to be able to get a sense of your maths ability. Likewise, same if you are doing maths and sciences, then they will be looking at your GCSE grades in the arts and humanities to understand your ability there. So generally, no, it doesn't necessarily matter the A-level combination to apply to a US university, unless you are looking at doing engineering. That's probably the main exception to this. If you're looking at doing engineering and an engineering degree, normally US universities will expect to see maths, physics, and maybe some other sciences in your A-level combination or your hires. So that's just the kind of main difference. But broad, otherwise, there isn't a sense of narrowing as we have here in the UK for A-levels. Other questions. How do we set about choosing university? For example, why Harvard over Duke, or why Stanford over Yale? So that's a really great question. We haven't covered it in this webinar because we've dug into extracurriculars, but we have a whole set of pages on our website about choosing US universities and the process by which you can go around doing that, and also a recording of a webinar about choosing US universities. The key thing here is to think about fit. What makes me a really great fit for this university, and why is this university a really great fit for me? So it's a two-way process, and it's about understanding that every university is really different, and so you're going to want to be doing that research in order to be able to discover universities that are going to be a good fit for who you are and what you're all about. Another question, do we have to visit universities before applying, or does it matter? Great question, I get asked it a lot. you know, some people are in a really lucky position where they can go and visit the United States full stop, or they can go and visit particular universities, perhaps before applying or after applying. But other people are in a situation where that might not be financially or logistically possible before they go and study. In my own experience, I had never been to America before I got on a plane on my own to fly there to study. I had not been to the university that I attended before I arrived to start my classes, and I'd done some research beforehand, and luckily landed on my feet. I knew it was going to be a good fit for me. You can spend a lot of time on university websites. You can have a look at virtual tours on university websites. You can check out their social media as well. They all have Instagram, they all have Snapchat. I think a lot of them are now getting TikTok accounts. So if that's something that you're interested in exploring what the university is like, you can go and have a look at those. You can definitely go and have a look at the by getting in touch with the admissions office, and maybe you write to them and ask if you can be put in touch with an international student studying at the university who can help tell you what it's like to study there as well. Other questions? Okay, we've got a question about, I've got the ACT test this Saturday, so I want to ask what I do after completing my exam in terms of applications. So if you are in the research phase, so perhaps year 12 or before, you're going to want to spend some time doing research. With the ACT, the scores come out really quickly, so you probably get your score middle to end of next week. So you'll have an idea of your score and you can start to factor that into your research. And then you'll start to, depending on when you're applying, which year you're applying for, you can start to put those applications together and submit those applications to US universities along the way. Other questions? Absolutely. So somebody else has said, do we have any more webinars like this and any more dates? Absolutely. Please do go and check on our website. That's Fulbright with 1L, fulbright.org.uk. We have the details of the upcoming webinars. We're always scheduling more, so please do feel free to go and have a look on a regular basis. We will keep adding more and more to the website. You can also pop onto our YouTube channel and have a look. We've got previous recordings of webinars before this. So again, if you want to go and catch up and kind of see some of the other webinars that we've run, you can find those on our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been really great talking through extracurriculars with you. Again, please feel free to have a look at our website. We've got loads more advice, help, guides on there. And please do have a look at some of our other events along the way. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a fantastic evening going forward, and let us know if we can help any more with applications for US universities. Thank you so much.